Hello and welcome to the video for week 10. This week you're going to learn about writing the instruction manual and you're going to submit an audience analysis for the target audience of your instruction manual. When we look at the Canvas page and the week 10 module, you'll see here writing the instruction manual for the lesson and then submitting the audience analysis for the instructions assignment. You will be writing your instruction manual with your partner in your group, and then you're going to submit that instruction manual next week. You're going to submit one copy of it in a discussion post for your peers, and then you're going to submit one copy of the same instruction manual in this assignment post so that I can look at it, grade it, and give you feedback. For the lesson on writing the instruction manual, we go through what instructions generally are and what's expected of them. The steps for planning to write an instruction manual. So it says here, the first step is to determine the structure or characteristics of the procedure that you're going to write about. Therefore, you need to have an idea of your game at this point, who the audience is going to be, and the situation in which your game will be played. And we'll go over those two things in the assignment post that you're going to be doing for this Thursday. You also want to think about what is the procedure that you're writing for an instruction manual. How many steps and tasks do you need? And if you're going to group any of those tasks. And then how to focus your instructions. In this case, you're going to be doing a task approach more so than a tools approach. So you'll be following, when you determine, you'll be following a task approach. Then there's an example of a tools approach. For your complete instruction manual that is due in the week 11 assignment post, you're going to be focused on the task's audience. Therefore, you're writing your instruction manual for the audience that is the consumer, the player of your game, not a classmate or an instructor, even though your classmates are going to be looking at it and I'm going to be looking at it. We're all going to be doing so under the understanding that these instructions are for the player of your game, which is not necessarily someone who falls within the characteristics or group of your peer or me, your professor. These following sections and requirements are listed so that you understand what you need to do. And then these are all explained further in more detailed explanations down here. So you're going to have a title, the date, a table of contents, an introduction that needs to follow these criteria, an object. You'll need to include warnings, cautions, and notices where they're needed throughout your instruction manual. You want to think about what technical background your audience has, and if there's anything that your audience would need included into the instruction manual so that they can build the game and play the game. You'll need to have a section for equipment and supplies. And you'll need to have a discussion of steps. So you're going to have two different groupings in your instruction manual. One will be to build the game, and the other one will be to play the game. Most likely, both of those will be in what's called fixed order steps. They must happen in a particular order in order for the game to be built, and then in order for the game to be played. However, you might also have alternate steps in there and nested steps. You might need supplementary discussion of certain steps, so you want to understand what that is. And then there's some examples of that. There's a particular writing style for instruction manual. For example, the word you is used often in an instruction manual. However, you want to avoid using the word you in any other documents that you write for this class. You want to you want to begin your steps with action verbs, and we've discussed action verbs now from your resume. And then you'll have a conclusion section and any other back matter that you might feel is necessary. If there isn't any that's needed, then you won't include that. This is a general view of what an instruction manual could look like. I go over graphics and images. You're required to have any kind of images that are going to help your user understand what you're communicating to them throughout the instruction manual. And then there are requirements for that. The requirements are that you must create those graphics or images or photos, so you can't pull them from elsewhere. You have to label all of them correctly and include a caption. So wherever that image appears, there'll be a label, figure 1, and then an explanation of what it is that the user is looking at. And in the text that precedes that graphic or image or photo, you need to refer to it. So for example, here, if there's the section called Creating Playing Cards, and the first step is to obtain 8 index cards, this should actually be a second step. Draw numbers in 8 different colors on the index cards, and then it says see figure 1, which then beneath that would be figure 1 label, explanation, and the image itself. So an image can't just exist in the instruction manual without any text in either the steps or some other section of the instruction manual that refers to that figure. For example, saying see figure 1. There's an explanation here of headings and lists, numbers and special notices. And you'll see how here the list has an introductory statement. So to put it back together, follow these steps, and then there's a colon, and then the list is indented and numbered. And there's also a note regarding step 3, and this is how the note is formatted. Then you have a warning example here in case you need to warn your user about any possible danger with that step. Then I have 3 examples of instruction manuals. 2 of these are from previous students that were in my course. These aren't perfect, but they give you a good idea of what it should look like. But again, you want to make sure that whatever you do matches the requirements that we just went over above and that you'll take notes on as you read through more carefully. And then this is an example of a professional outline for game instructions. Before you submit and finalize your instruction manual, you want to go through this revision checklist as well, which reiterates some of the criteria that's listed above or explained above. And then for week 10, you're going to submit the audience analysis for the instructions. Here, I explain that you're going to research the audience or audiences that you are targeting for your game and analyze the task for your instruction manual and the rhetorical situation of your game. You'll submit 1 audience analysis per group in a Word document. You'll write both members' group names at the top, along with the title of the assignment and the title of your game. Include page numbers if your audience analysis runs over 1 page. You'll include proper in-text citations and APA and a corresponding references page for all research that you use. You'll break up your document into these 3 sections below. Number 1, games audience or audiences. And what you want to research and write about is who do you think is the player of your game? Be specific. As we discussed in our previous lesson, it's never anyone or everyone. And you may have multiple audience groups, a primary or a secondary audience. And so you can break it up and specify who each of those groups are. You want to conduct some research on those audience groups so that you can understand what you're writing about here. And you want to explain what you think are the best elements of technical writing and instructions writing that will help you communicate in your instruction manual to your target audience. Then you're going to have a section called industry news around the type of the game. So you're going to look up industry news about what is the recent history of similar games, what is the current conversation around the development of this game type or similar games, what issues have come up, and what new updates or modifications are being written about. And then lastly, you're going to write about the situation of the game. And that means where is your audience when they're building the game and when they're playing the game? What typically is the suggested space for your players? Is it outdoors or indoors? What are the elements of outdoors or indoors? What concerns with the space? Should you consider explaining in your instructions? What are any safety concerns or possible liabilities, ethical concerns? And how can your instructions warn users about these concerns? So for example, if you're playing a game indoors, but an object is being thrown, right? You don't want to have a liability on your hands that somebody broke an object in their home because the audience is 10 years old and it wasn't explained to them that they shouldn't be playing inside where there are fragile items. If it's going to be played outside, where do you recommend outside? On a lawn where there's grass, on pavement, obviously not in the middle of the street, right? So you really want to think about what situation you suggest for where your players play the game, and then what elements are in that space that you need to be concerned with. And then you can see the rubric and you'll submit that audience analysis. If you have any questions, please ask as you work on your audience analysis and your instructions manual.